Hi, Joe Cerrone. Welcome to CAD 107 Introduction to 3D Printing. And our topic for today is network applications for the Dremel software. So right now I am 3D printing some parts for it's actually for a bird stand. And so this is a little, it's actually a basketball. You can teach your birds how to play basketball. And so I found these files on Thingiverse and I'm printing them. And I have two versions that are printed. Right now, if we look at the slicer, we can see that I've imported this geometry. And I'll show you the other one. So I have two 3D printers that are networked to the computer. And you can get a webcam of the 3D print. And so as you're printing, you can monitor your prints remotely. You can tell me what the IP address is of the printer, the filament type. This is PLA, polylactic acid. Nozzle temperature is 229 centigrade. Platform temperature is 60 degrees. And so it has a heated platform bed, and this is the nozzle. You can see it moving back and forth here. And then the chamber temperature. Okay, what's the temperature inside of the chamber? It's an enclosed printing environment. Here's my job name, and it has 8 minutes left to print. If I look at the slicing, what I did was I got a ball from Thingiverse, and then I opened it and imported it into the drawing. And then I set the material properties. Once I set the material properties, I was able to network the printer through this manage printers. And what you can do is you can create a new printer and then connect over the network. And you need to know a little bit about Tcpip, which is Transmission Control Internet Protocol. And what it allows you to do is to ping or to hit the address on the 3D printer. And if we go over to the 3D printer and look at the settings on it, when you connect them to Wi-Fi, they'll have an individual IP address. And so you connect to the IP address on the printer. And then once you're connected to the printer, you can run them remotely. And so in this application, I'm running them remotely in the lab, and I'm able to import the part. Once the part is in, I can then set the quality level and the material type. This one is a Dremel PLA. You can also use PETG, which is made from old pop bottles. It's recycled material. You can use nylon, and you can use ABS, acrylbutyl sulfate. And depending on the material properties that you want, you can choose the material that you want to use. So for example, PLA is inexpensive, it's biodegradable, but it doesn't stand up real well to heat and sunlight. And so it's kind of like a vinyl record. You wouldn't want to leave it in your car because it could warp, and they will warp. So material selection depends on the environment, but for this application, PLA is just fine. It's just going to be a bird ball. And then as we go through and we look at how the slicing is set up, you can toggle these. And as we toggle those, we can then expand them and work with these other features within it. So we could start with what I use the most, which is build plate adhesion. And so if we expand build plate adhesion, I have this one set as a brim, and this is what a brim looks like. What it does is it makes sure that the part sticks to the bed, because as we slice it, and what we'll do is we bring it in and then we prepare it, and as we go through, we can look at the slicer. And so this is this eye right here, and you can look at the layers. And so layer 1 is what the extruder prints on the first layer, and then layer 2 would be the next layer, et cetera, et cetera. And so this part will print in 272 layers. And what we want to do is we kind of want to look and see if the build will work. And so we want to look at the angles of the geometry. And you can print out some examples that'll tell you what the maximum angle is that you can have as an overhang. As we get farther into 3D printing, we'll look at some of those things. But most of the things on 3D, on Thingiverse, are really pretty high quality, good quality to be able to print. And so as I look at it layer by layer, it's just in this component. And then if I go to the build, we can see here it is building. And it's got 4 minutes and 52 seconds left. And that's not always exact. What we did find out on the 3D printers is it might hang for the last minute or two longer. I'm not sure why, but it's not super precise on the time, but it is very close. So let's see. Yeah, 4 more minutes. And then let's take a look at our other drawing or our other part. So here's our other part. And what I did was I went over to Thingiverse and let's see. I may have closed it. I'm going to pause. Actually, I'll just go right here. Sorry, I wanted to see how long it would be till the bird would fly again. And I think what they do is well, talk about it later. So here's Thingiverse. And it's a great place to find models. And you can create an account and upload your own CAD files. And so what I did was I found some parts that I wanted to print and I downloaded them. And so I went to bird toys. Might have been basketball. I have a lot of network traffic on my internal connection. And so what we can do then is we can find some parts that we want to print. And here's my basketball toy. And what they'll do is they'll show you the models and they'll show you what it looks like printed. And then you can look at each of the individual components. And then they have a YouTube video for it as well. And then you can download the files. I'm already logged in, I think. So I say download. And then let's just download the ball because I need a smaller one. And so here I've downloaded the ball and I'm going to show it in the folder. And then once it's done downloading, I'm going to open it. I already have one here, so I'm just going to grab that. And I'm going to say open with, choose another app, Dremel Slicer. And we can open it directly through the slicer also. But by opening it this way, I get 3 sessions. And so if I have another network 3D printer, and so this is where you start getting into what would be considered like a print farm, where you would have all these jobs and then your network technicians is to utilize the equipment to produce those parts. Just like in CNC programming, the machines sometimes have long cycle times, an hour, 2 hours, a weekend. So here's my part. And it's been brought in to the slicer. And I can just go in here and navigate, push the wheel on the mouse. It takes a while. It's a little wonky, but if you play video games, you'll be better at it. I can move the part onto the palette where I want. And part orientation is important. We'll talk about that at another time. But for this project, what I want to do is I want to scale it. So the first thing I can do is move it. So you can put more than one part on here. So for example, here's one. And then if I want to go and grab another one, I can import another one. And then let's say I want to print them at different sizes. And so I'll take one and I'll move it over here and I'll move it like this. I kind of like them to be in the middle of the build plate, not too far away from each other, but and you can tinker around with it. It's not super critical. And then once I have them on the build plate, I'm going to scale them. And so this one I'll click on and I'll select scale. And I'm going to scale it down 50% because I have a small bird. And then on this one, I'm going to scale it down 75%. Let's go 30%. Make a tiny wall. And then we'll move it. We'll set up the quality level. I'm going to go with something quick, low quality. I'm going to keep my settings from my last job, and then I'll prepare it. When you click prepare, what it does is it slices the model. So it'll use CPU time. You want an i5 or an i7 processor, something relatively quick. And then we can look at the layers. And we can also get an estimate of the time. So this is a very quick build time, 14 minutes. It's 91 layers, so a lot less. But when we scale it, we start to lose some of the dimensional properties. And so you have to be careful about how small you can print something, because when you print them at full scale from Thingiverse or for your own model, then you have more integrity. And then as the design gets smaller or scales, then you'll lose some of that integrity or some of the layers. Okay, and so as we look at really closely the layer properties, you can see the tool path that it's going to follow. And if you use the Cura slicer, it actually shows you the head moving. Oh, it's done. Let's take a look at it. So they will ding, and when they are done building, the plate will lower and you'll be able to get the part. I'll grab it and show it to you. Accept it. Okay, I've removed the part and I'm going to then show it on the webcam. So here's my part, and this is my bird. I think it's a little too big for him, so we'll go and print a smaller one, and we'll see if we can maybe update you with some basketball playing birds. Okay, that ends this video of how to use the Dremel slicer.